Grief is not something that we get rid of. Grief is something that we learn how to navigate through. And so this is part two of our grief series. Last week we talked how to navigate grief. And this week is a continuation on because a lot of people are grieving internationally with the death of Charlie Kirk. And so whether you're grieving over Charlie or you're grieving over a family member who is passed, or you're grieving over a dream that didn't come to pass, whatever it is, grief comes in all different forms and fashions and for different reasons. So it's really different for every single person. But the truth is that unless you're in heaven at some point, every one of us is going to experience grief. And so it's really important that we know how to not only navigate it, but how to continue to identify triggers, how to identify healthy behavior patterns, or I should say, how to identify unhealthy behavior patterns. So that way we can replace it with behaviors that are going to promote wellness, promote clarity in our life. So we're going to do a check-in today. So for those of you who are watching now or on the replay, what I want you to do is do a check-in. And I want you to just describe how grief has been showing up for you this past week. It could be emotionally, physically, or spiritually. Maybe you've been feeling spiritually attacked, like EmmaSara, like I want to pray, but I go to pray and I just start crying. I don't know what to pray. Could be emotionally, I'm angry, I'm having outbursts, I am in depression. It could be physically, you could say, I am feeling a lot of pain right now. There is a lot of people who suffer from fibromyalgia, and fibromyalgia is absolutely connected with emotional pain and trauma that has need for escape. Okay, so a lot of times people hold on to traumatic situations, and what happens is that they're not navigating it, they're not coping with it. So rather than navigating or coping it, they're holding on to it. And so it's looking for a release point. And a lot of times that point of release isn't really escaping. So it's getting trapped in parts of your body, whether it's back pain, knee pain, joints, diagnoses like rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia. Those are definitely areas that grief can show up if we don't deal with it. Okay. So, number two check in is what triggers feel the hardest right now. So, I want you to just think about that. You are identifying that you're feeling an emotional, physical, spiritual response, but I want you to figure out what trigger feels the hardest right now. We are making a connection, we're being aware of our emotional state, and we're being cognitive. Okay. That means we're mindfully thinking about, instead of just walking places and just being and feeling and not really making a point of contact or a point of connection, we're actually making a point of connection so that we can bring awareness to the things that are making our grief exasperated. And so for me, I know it is, my feed, I can't escape. Not that I want to, but I'm just saying right now, my feed and my algorithm is set up that every one of my, if I turned on my social, IG, Facebook, whatever, it's going to show Charlie's face everywhere, his teachings everywhere. And it is bittersweet because I love his teaching. I love his wisdom. I'm so blessed by it. At the same time, I feel immense grief and loss because I'm like, how in the world is this young man, this young voice with so much wisdom snuffed out? How is his message? It's difficult. Like, how's that message been taken from us? How has it been? We know that it's been snuffed out by a shooter. That's how it's been taken from us. But it brings a lot of questions, right? Our grief will allow us to go through a season of what if could have, you know what I mean? What if I should say what ifs? What if I would have done this? I wish I could have done that. What would have happened if you would have lived, or what could life look like? Or, there's just so what's how come, what if, like I said, all those question mark yeah, I'm just, even right now, I just went to his service on Sunday, and it was a very quick trip. So I didn't get, and I slept 40 minutes before I left. We got only 1 hour the night of sleep. So the day that I left, 40 minutes of sleep. The night that before the memorial, 40 or 1 hour of sleep. And anyway, a lot of travel. So I am foggy, to be honest with you. I was already emotionally foggy before we even left. I was already feeling like my mind, like even now you can see, and this is a process of it. This is me identifying, this is me working through even my own personal grief, because I really love Charlie. Got to tell him in Mar-Lago in September or December, I'm sorry. I got to tell him how proud I was of him. I said, Charlie, as a mom of six sons, I'm so super proud of you, in front of a group of people. And so, like, I hold on to that memory. It's such a good memory for me. Uh, but it's still tied to grief now, because I realized how important that was, that I was able to tell him that. So even going through the motions right now, and I'm doing this coaching session for you guys, but I'm also doing this coaching session for me, because I know about grief, and knowing is half the battle. Applying is how we get through this other side. And so, Maria, I see that you just jumped on here, but I want you to write in the chat, how has grief been showing up for you, emotionally, physically, mentally, or spiritually? And then if you want to go a little bit deeper, I mean, you could just say it's been an emotional situation, physical. But if you want to go deeper, I want to really encourage you to itemize what that emotion is: anger, depression, okay, physical, pain, my knee, my back, mental. The mental turmoil is really like, it's never going to get better. This world is going to go to hell in a handbasket. Like, it's just giving up. The mental part of it is the mental challenge. And then also list how or what trigger feels the hardest for you right now. And as we're going through all this, like I said, the naming part of your brain is going to be looking at the areas, like the shift is going to be happening in your amygdala. That's what we're trying to work on right now. We're trying to get the flight or fight response away from our amygdala and right into our frontal cortex, so we can actually make logical decisions, so that we can be in control. Our thinking process can be in control, being controlled with our thoughts and our rational thinking rather than our emotions. And just think about it: when a child is hurt, a child trips, they hit their knee, they are just like, they're out of it. They hit their knee. I'm in pain. They're screaming. They're crying. You're just like, you just fell. You just hit your knee. It's not that big a deal. And I'm not saying that grief is not a big deal, but the point is that when we're in that fight or flight mode, everything feels painful. We can't hear anybody trying to say anything to us, because all we want to do is concentrate on the pain. Does that make sense? When we are in the emotional part of our brain, we just want to concentrate on the pain. We just want to concentrate on the area that has been hurt. We just want to concentrate on the loss. And guess what happens? Guess what happens when we concentrate on only the hurt part? Whether it's the knee, whether it's the grief, whether it's somebody, we lost somebody, we lost a loved one, we lost the money, we lost the finances, we lost the investment, whatever it is, all you're doing is like the little kid who just fell, who's 3 years old, just hit his knee, screaming his head off. People are trying to help, and all you want to do is concentrate on the pain. For that child in that moment, that child is feeling pain. Okay. That's why they're screaming. But we know that as soon as they calm down and realize that they are still living, they're still alive, and it's just a boo-boo and they're going to be better. Until we can calm them down, they can't realize that it is not as bad as they perceive. And this is the truth, is that death is painful. It is so, it stings, it's grievous, it is horrible. Death is so horrible. The death of a loved one is beyond, it is beyond anything on, like, the pain for me, it's beyond any pain. Even like pain for bad things that happen, it seems like when you lose somebody that you really love, that you really care for, and they die, it's such a different level. There's different things. People can backstab you, people can talk about you, people can desert you, whatever it is. People, there's dumb things that people do that are hurtful. and they can cause grief. You can have a husband cheat on you or whatever, things like this. But when you lose somebody, especially if you lose a child or, a mother or father that you were close to that you really love, it's a different level of grief. And I think you guys would probably agree with that, right? And so, although even with Charlie, he wasn't my son, I had a love of a mother for him because I was so proud of him as a mother. And so in my brain, so I'm working this out with you guys here, okay? So why has this been so difficult for me is because in my brain, EmmaSara's brain here, even though I didn't have like a super close relationship with Charlie, I did, I went to a lot of the events, I would say. I traveled around, went to Turning Point events. I did a lot of media coverage for them. He got to talk into my son's life. He got to talk to them, told them that he believes in them, gave them wise counsel. Like I said, I got to tell him that I'm so proud of him as a mother. And I do have a mantle as a mother of change. I have a mantle as a mother of nations. God gave me that mantle. I have a book around here. I don't see it up, but I have a 400-page book called Becoming a Mother of Change. So God has given me the love of a mother for many. And I believe that that's why I have such a strong heart connection with Charlie as a son. And so for me, when I'm saying I'm grieving right now, and it's so deep, it's because in my brain, that portion of my brain that is now the hippocampus, the library of my brain, I have filed it away that Charlie is like a son to me. So like my brain doesn't know the difference. He's not my son, and he's somebody else's son. But in my brain, I have registered that I lost a son, and I had to understand that process of what's going on in my brain. Okay, I had to stop and be like, okay, so what is going on? I'm having emotions. I'm having a lot of pain. I'm crying way more than usual. And my mom, and just so that you know, when I was growing up, I like Bijou doesn't cry a lot. I didn't cry a lot. I didn't really cry at all until I was probably like 48. And then, like spiritual things, the move of God, the hand of God, things like that, I would get emotional about. But other than that, like not really a lot of emotions, right? But this last year, I'm sure it might be hormones. I'm not 51 now, but I'll tell you this is that my mom actually even said to me, she said, I have never ever seen you respond like this before. Like you really must have loved Charlie. And I said, yes, I really love him. And she said, I've never seen you love another child like your own child. Like I've seen you love Charlie. And I said, bingo. And as that's me, EmmaSara woman. I have EmmaSara me here, neuro reset coach, who actually had to separate myself. Okay. I have to separate the fact that I'm a woman, that I have feelings, that I have emotions, I'm human. And then understand that I am somebody who is trained. I am somebody who's a coach and somebody who understands how the brain works. Therefore, I had to make the connection. Oh, okay. I understand what's going on here. Why is my grief so heavy? Why is the pain so deep? Because my brain thinks you just lost a son. Okay. It does not know that Charlie Kirk is somebody else's son. It doesn't know in that respect, as far as the emotion is concerned, because how I've filed it away in my head, in my hippocampus, I have filed this book that says Charlie Kirk is a son to me. Okay. So now I've already filed it, like it was already in my person. I've already made that connection. I already made the heart connection. So when Charlie passed, my brain was already like, this is a son to EmmaSara. And so the grief process has been that of one who has lost a son. And it really stinks. And my heart goes out to those of you who have actually lost your children. My heart, I mean, I've thought about you a million times over and over and over again. My heart goes out to you so greatly. So I'm here to do part 2 today. Okay, because last week was navigating grief, and this time we're going to do a grief reset. Because it's important and we need to continue to heal in this area of grief. And so, what we're doing right now, which I just went through the acute grief. I think, did I go over the acute grief? Because I had to do a replay. Shelley, did I talk about acute grief, the adaptive grief? So we talked about the acute grief is a flood of stress hormones. That's the level of you just get hurt. Cortisol is pumping, the adrenaline is pumping. You just fell, hit your knee, boom. You got cortisol rolling, adrenaline, bam, bam, bam. That's acute grief. Okay, so somebody, you just found out the news, you just lost somebody. That's your acute grief. Okay. Uh, okay, so you said I didn't hear it, but yes, I did. So I did talk about it because then they can watch it on the replay. I just want to make sure since I had to re-record this one. I can't remember if I did it on this recording or not. So it looks like I did. So watch the replay. Maria, you can come on and watch replay. So we have acute grief, we have adaptive grief, we have stuck grief. I have been in stuck grief the last couple of days, and I had to make a decision to get out of stuck grief, which is that hippocampus. And what I'm going to have to do. Okay, I didn't hear it. Yes, you did. Okay, so you do. So just say not this recording. So you want me to repeat it? Just say yes, repeat, or no, repeat. I just don't want to repeat it if I just got through saying it. Like I said, I'm confused because I had to stop and re-record some of the stuff. So yes, record, or no. I mean, yes, repeat. Yes, repeat. Okay. Or repeat. So the acute grief is the flood of stress hormones. Bam, you fall down, you hit your leg, you're in pain. You just found out somebody passed away, cortisol, adrenaline, that's pumping. That's acute grief. It's like it happens instantaneously. And then you have adaptive grief. This is neuroplasticity. And this is where we begin to learn patterns. Your brain is learning right now. It's holding the pain, it's making new routines, it's making new habits, it's making its assertions right now. So your adaptive grief is like, okay, now I'm going to be changing the way, like before I saw reels of Charlie and I was so excited to see reels of Charlie. Now I see reels of Charlie and like I feel uh pain, when I see his reels now. I used to be really excited. Now I see him and I feel pain immediately. That's the neuroplasticity part because now neuroplasticity means our brain is making changes and it's changing the way it adapts, and it's adaptive. Okay, that's a perfect term for it. Adaptive grief is the neuroplasticity means things are plastic, they're moving around, they're movable, changeable. Stuck grief is the hippocampus, which is where I have been, ladies. I have been in some stuck grief, and I know that some of you guys have also been in a stuck grief situation where you are, maybe some of you have gone through depression. I am not a person who deals with depression. I had a small stint of it during an episode in 2010 because something that had happened that was life-changing in our life. But I'm not somebody who's depressed. I don't like the way an overwhelming sense of emotion feels, and I'm feeling not depressed, but I am feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness the last couple of days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. It has been too much for me because I don't typically process life that way. And so it's been difficult for me to navigate this process of grief because it is abnormal for me. But why is it abnormal for me? Because my brain feels like a child just died. So just talking about it. So, like I said, some of you on this coaching call have felt that grief. So I understand it, but my heart empathize like everything for you because the truth is that Charlie wasn't my son. And so, how do we flesh this out? Because for me, the plasticity part is me needing to go in and do some rewiring, do some resetting, move some things around. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So whether it's my situation or your situation, and that situation doesn't have to be death, it could be anything that causes grief. You could find out, some terrible information about a son or daughter, that they're going, doing things, or a spouse or whatever. It could be whatever the grief is. Process is going to be the same, is that we are going to do a neuro process, and it's called the RAS, or the reticular activating system, RAS for short. This is going to be where we're identifying our stages, and identifying what stage we're in helps to reset the RAS, which helps us to focus on solutions instead of looping into a survival pattern. And remember, we have the lie loop. I've told you guys about that in past coaching sessions. The lie loop will go over and over and over again. And I told you, like, our brain here always pretend like you have a reset button here, you have a play button here, you have a stop button. Like, you can just make the choice to say enough, right? And reset everything. And so the narrow reset exercise that I had told you guys about before was we have the breath work or the breathing exercises, and that really helps. And I have been doing that. And when I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed with emotions, like my amygdala is wanting me to disengage. It wants, like, your amygdala, when it's stressed out, it like wants you to sleep all day. It wants you to get in a car and just go far, far away and not even go shopping or do anything because you don't want to do anything. You just want to run away. Those are the typical things that are happening when you are overwhelmed, right? And so the neuro reset breath work is going to help you stop. And it does, it feels like a hug. Okay, so I gave you guys the steps to do the box breathing in our last video. It's very easy, and I will go over the steps in a little bit here. But I want to talk to you also about the importance of the breath work. It's slowing down the amygdala. It activates your vagus nerve. So it's not just about feeling like a warm hug. It's actually doing a bodily process, and your vagus nerve is helping to rest. And even for digestion, a lot of people have eating difficulties while they're going through grief. They're not hungry. They are, like last night, my husband, do you want some I made this? No. Do you want some of this? No, I'm not hungry. Do you want? No, I don't want anything. Like, nothing tastes good to me. That is all a part of the process of grief that's happening. And if you guys have experienced that, you can do 5 fingers up. Yes, I have experienced that. That is a grief process. Okay. So the breath work is going to help do that neuro reset, but then we also have the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the library. What did I say? In my brain, there is a book. If you pull it out, okay, make believe book, whatever, there's still a piece of information in my brain that's saying Charlie Kirk's book here is, in EmmaSara's file, as he is my son. He's not really my son, but I have said it so many times, and my brain is like, that's EmmaSara's son. She loves him like a son. She's proud of him like a son. She, wants all her sons to be like the older brother, like be like Charlie, lead like Charlie, be a father like Charlie. Like, my brain is like, this guy is family. Whew. That is the library of the mind. That is the hippocampus at work. It creates a new neural association and moves memory, okay, from the active trigger to an archived file. So now I am connecting. So that same book of information for Charlie is like, before it was Charlie's book comes out and I'm like, oh, Charlie, it's a piece of information here. Charlie is like my son and Charlie makes me happy. But now this book has been taken out, and now we look on this book, and now no longer does it just look like, oh, this is EmmaSara's son in her brain, but now it looks like EmmaSara's son has passed away, and EmmaSara has triggers, and EmmaSara has pain. It goes back on the shelf, and now in my brain, okay, this whole Charlie file is mixed up with, I don't know if I want to call it mixed up, but I would say it is encoded with information that now this book of Charlie is EmmaSara's family, and there's death, and there's triggers, and there's pain. Okay, so that is what is happening with that part of my brain. So what I'm doing right now is I'm being aware of the situation. I'm being active. And so what I'm wanting you guys to do is to do the same thing, is to be thinking about the book in your brain. You have a literal book, not a literal book, I should say, a literal son or a literal person who is your family. He is not a family. He's a family of God. So he, in the big scheme of things, Charlie is family, of course. We're all brothers and sisters in Christ. But in the world's terms of flesh and bone, he wasn't. Okay. So identifying your stage helps the RES system, like I said. So back to the visualization, it creates a new neural association and moves that memory from the active trigger. So now what I need to do is rewrite this, you see there's paper, this information on here. What I need to do is pull this book out, this hippocampus. This is where we have to visualize. This is where we're writing down. This is where we're logging. And what we're doing is we're creating a new narrative. We have to create a new narrative if we want to get past grief. We have to give our brain the permission to write a new narrative, to write a new chapter. We have to give yourself permission, because you might say, well, I'm afraid of rewriting that chapter. I'm afraid of what I'll lose if I change the narrative. And I want to tell you that if you're in grief and if you're in pain or if you're in depression, give yourself the permission, because it is a positive thing. It's not negative. And already, if you are afraid to rewrite the negative, then that shows that there are a whole bunch of different things that are going on within your brain, within your spirit, even, and within your person about grief, that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and he will use grief to destroy people. He will. Okay, it's a natural bodily process. Grief in and of itself is not a bad thing. God's created us with emotions, to be happy, to be sad, to feel joy, discontent, to feel jealousy, to feel all the different things. So that way we know what he feels like when we disappoint him, to know what he feels like when we go after other gods and he's jealous, to know what we feel like when he had his only son crucified for us. Okay, so it is a part of the natural process. So he's also given us the ability and the mind and bright minds to give us the information and the studies to study the brain, to know how it works. So that way we can be in alignment, mind, body, and spirit. Yes, Maria, she said, I have to create a new narrative to get past this chapter in my life. Yes. So this is going to be a very powerful tool for you, because I want you to get a journal, because I don't want you to lose it. And I want you to write a new narrative, a new page. So, I'm a coach, but because I'm in the middle of grief right now, I'm going to choose to do this exercise for myself this week, because I'm in the throes of grief right now. And so I'm actually going to get my God journal. I have a God time journal. I really encourage everybody to have a God time journal. Like, when you see that journal, that's not how you're doing, how you're feeling, whatever. This is a God journal. This is like me and God. Like, if I'm praying and I'm praying to God, I will write it in there. If I'm hearing from God, I will put it in there. But when I pick up that book, it's an anointed book, because it's my together time with the Lord. And so this narrative part, though, you can use that for your God time and just say, Lord, I need help writing a new narrative. I need to hear from heaven. Lord, what do you want to file away? Okay, EmmaSara says there's a library in my mind, and I have a book, Lord, and it has my son's name on it. It has my family member's name on it. It has this part, whatever it is that has caused grief to you. And normally grief is connected with people. Am I wrong about that? Normally, sometimes it's not a person. Sometimes it's a dream. Maybe it's something that you really wanted to do and you didn't get to do it. That can bring grief too. But like the really life-changing grief, a lot of times it is dealing with a person and a letdown or a disappointment or a death. Okay. So definitely writing a new narrative. So what does that look like? It means that we're going to move a memory, like I said, from active trigger to an archived file. And you can archive something. And what does that mean? That means that and we'll do the steps before we go, we'll pray. But so some things need to be rewritten, some things need a new narrative, some things need to be archived. Some things need to be archived. That means like I used to, back in the day when I was really young, I used to do a lot of filing. I worked for a company. I worked for a finance company. We used to have to archive files, and every morning it was my job to go and pull all the lists for all the stuff that was going to be archived. That means they're no longer active. They're no longer being dealt with. They're customers who have been with us but are no longer with us, and we're just going to pick up the file. We're going to move it to the back file, and now it's there, but it's not active. And there are some things that we have to render inactive if we want to go forward. And so the reality is that and this is the thing, is that sometimes we feel a guilt and a shame for not feeling grief. Sometimes we feel guilt and a shame for for not having that deep feeling. But I want to let you know that it is okay. It is okay. And it is not doing a disservice if you no longer feel the grief, because even David, King David, when he lost his son with Bathsheba, he was told that he was going to be losing that child. And what happened? He was praying, he was fasting. I believe he put sackcloth and ashes on. And what happened? His son ended up passing. And as soon as his son passed, it said that he got, okay, 2 Samuel 12:20. So then 2 Samuel 12:20, then David got up from the ground after he had washed, put on lotions, changed his clothes, and he went into the house of the Lord and he worshiped. Do you guys hear that? That is the example right there. I'm so glad I looked this up. Not only did he get up, wash his face, and go eat, it says that he got up and he worshiped. So I want you guys to write that down. Worship. Worship is one of the main ways we should be dealing with grief, is worshiping. It says, then he went to his own house, and at his request, they served him food and he ate. All right. That is verse 20, 21. Then his attendants asked him, why are you acting this way? While the child was alive, you fasted and wept, but now that the child is dead, you get up to eat. So they sound like they were a little bit bothered by it. And he answered to them and he said, while the child was still alive, I fasted and I wept. I thought, who knows, maybe the Lord may be gracious to me and let the child live. But now that he is dead, why should I go on fasting? Can I bring him back again? I will go home, but he will not return to me. Then David comforted his wife Bathsheba, and he went to her, and she gave birth to a son and named him Solomon. Whew, that's a whole message right there. That is a whole message. And so the fact is that grief isn't going to change the outcome. So everybody, we need to understand that. Okay, grief is not going to change the outcome for the better. It doesn't. When we're in grief, our grief is not the soil of good ground. Grief is not where we grow from. The lessons we grow from, okay, so we have to understand that there's lessons that can bring about grief. But if we're so stuck in grief, we'll never learn the lesson. So grief in and of itself is an emotion. It's not bad. It's not an inherently bad thing to feel grief. We should be allowed to grieve. We just have to know that if we want to build, we can't build on grief. We have to separate ourselves from grief, understand why we're grieving, learn the lessons that are brought. You know, there's an item, there's a action that brought about the grief. So we have to step outside of the grief. It's an emotion. And we have to say, okay, we have to become sober-minded. Remember that, okay? Be sober-minded. Why do we have to be sober-minded? Because it's in that sobriety. When we're in grief, it's almost like we're drunk. We can't think straight. We can't walk straight. My eyes last week were so cloudy. I was trying to do a post. My eyes were so cloudy, I could not even read. Like my face was just, I couldn't even see anything. My eyes weren't working. They were blurry. And so I hope I'm painting the picture for you guys, is that grief, while it feels honoring, because I do feel that he is worthy to be missed, it's not somewhere that we want to get stuck in. Okay, so that's, you say you don't want to be stuck in grief anymore, but yesterday a trigger happened unexpected and it brought it back. It's going to happen. The 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, I was like, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, the 5 senses. Maria, I don't know if you remembered that of our last training last week. If you guys didn't watch it, go back, watch the replay. But I gave the 5 senses tool. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop. It's the 5 senses. Stop and pay attention to something. Like, look, there's a car going by. What's that? You like, it smells like fall. Sometimes there's a scent of fall in the air. I did this last week. I was really struggling. I was like, just stop, EmmaSara. You just need to recenter, become realigned, mind, body, and spirit, and just stop, be present, because grief can be all consuming. You're stepping outside of grief and you're saying, I'm alive. You're telling your body, I'm alive. I'm human. I'm not in danger because grief is so painful. Your body feels like you are in extreme amount of danger. Your brain feels like you're in an extreme amount of danger. You're stopping. You're like, I smell things. I'm living. I am tasting this right now. I'm living. Get the point. It is a reset and it's bringing your body outside of the grief and it's putting you into everyday life. It's making you connect with the fact that you're okay. So the box breathing is what I told you before, which is you inhale for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, and how it is like. And so you're picturing 4, 4, 4. That's why they call it box, because you're just remembering it's an even amount of inhaling, holding, exhaling, holding. And then you're going to want to do that for at least 3 to 4 different cycles. That has really helped me. And it does something to like my endorphins where I'm going from grief to sadness to peace. It brings in that feeling of safety. And so I want to encourage you guys to continue to do that. And then also, you guys need a scripture anchor. And so it may be different for each one of you guys. So definitely have an anchor. And so when you're writing that narrative, make sure you guys put this down. When you guys are asking the Lord to rewrite a narrative for you, whatever it is, ask the Lord to give you at least 2 to 3 concrete scriptures that are going to go on that file. Okay, so mine are going to obviously be like a hope for the future, but it's on there. I'm going to be very positive, with that connection with Charlie, very positive. And this is the truth, ladies, is that time, God is outside of time. And I strongly believe that when people die, it seems like forever for us, right? But in God's economy, God's timeline, there is no time. I really believe that when somebody dies, like we all end up at the same place at the same time. Like it's going to feel like a while for us, but for him, he's going to close his eyes. And I believe we're going to end up at the same time expanse at the same time. So there will be no delay. So, and that's just my belief. And I think that's probably, and this is me just being EmmaSara here. Okay. This is not anything I'm going to sit here and have a support for. Just being honest with you, this is my belief and I could be wrong, but I really believe that that could be why like we're like, oh, people are like, oh, our loved ones are looking out for us. I don't think they're actually looking at us because there's way too much craziness down here. It wouldn't be heaven if you saw people that you were concerned about. If you're concerned about people getting murdered, killed, and everything else, that's not heaven. You're okay, but I don't know how it works up there. I don't know if they're allowed to see, and there's a scripture that says that they don't know anything, they don't perceive anything when they're dead. So I only have that scripture to go by. All I know is I believe that because we're going to come to that place in expansive time at the same time, there's not any need to say, oh, they're looking out for me or they're doing whatever, because we're all going to get there at the same time and everybody's going to understand. We're going to have full understanding in the very end. Just that's a little side note. Okay. That is not gospel. That is my opinion. Maybe it's my hope. Okay, so we're coming to the end here. So ground your body. That means bring it into alignment. Do your breath work. Name the wave. Name the wave. Okay, so we're going to give you 5 guided walkthrough steps. Okay, step 1 is ground your body. And some people might get weirded out with New Age terms. I'm not a New Age girl, but there are terms we both use interchangeably, and it's okay. They use meditate. It means one thing. Christians use meditate. It's another thing. Okay, meditate is not the problem. How you do it is. Okay, naming the wave. Write the hardest part is, and then ... Okay, so number 1, ground your body. Number 2, name the wave. The hardest part is, I want you to write down what the hardest part is, whatever the action is that is causing you to feel grief. So what is the hardest part? The hardest part for me is knowing that Charlie was so wise and he had such godly counsel, and that voice was snuffed out. That is the hardest part for me, because our generation needs wise voices because the church is not even filled with them. And if the pastors are not giving sound counsel, and if the pastors are not giving wise counsel, and the mothers and fathers are not giving wise counsel, and there was one man who was doing it, That is the hardest part for me. I'm naming it. Do you see that? Very clear. I'm very clear on what is the hardest part. Number 3 is the library of the mind. Visualize refilling that painful book, which I just said. We're going to rewrite the narrative. Okay, so I'm going to have to rewrite the narrative. And every time I see that, I'm going to have to rewrite the narrative and just tell my brain, okay, every time you see this, of this reel, you're going to give yourself permission to not think about death. Okay, that I have to give myself permission to look at his reel and take it at a cover value of people are learning, people are growing, have such a spirit of gratitude that God knew his days, the number of his days. He knew when he would go home. And I feel that although it was terrible, I feel like, and it was just like it was terrible when Yeshua was crucified. Okay, it's terrible, but it had to happen for Yeshua. And I believe that it had to happen for Charlie because our world is so decrepit and people are so lackadaisical. And I know because the Lord told me in June that we were going to see people martyred for our faith in our timeline. Like in my life, I'm 51, so I didn't know it was going to be this year. I knew we were supposed to get prepared. I kept telling the family, and then I told a friend, just like on the casual note, sent him a message. So I know that and other various things that God was already preparing me to let me know that Charlie was going to be going home. And I think that being allowed to go to the Mar-a-Lago event, go to the investors event, and be able to see him twice that weekend, speak into his life, tell him I love him, tell him I'm proud of him. And then I had to take a picture with him later at Mar-a-Lago. And he was told, and he always has people around him. And you just don't go up to people and say, I want a picture. I mean, a lot of people do, but I'm not trying to do all, I don't want to break in to, I try not to, every once in a while. But I was being patient. I wasn't butting in. I was just being patient. I was standing next to him and he looked up at me and he was talking to somebody and he could have finished the conversation. I would have waited. But he didn't. He stopped his conversation. He's like, I think she wants to take a picture with me just a minute. And so he got up, but it was just like hours before that I had told him I was so proud of him. So I have hair. You guys know that it's easy to recognize me. So I had my hat on, I had my hair, and that's what I want to rewrite in the book. I want to rewrite in the book that God's ways are right, that God's timeline is right. And even though we don't like the timeline, God's timeline is perfect. And just like Christ had to die and it stunk. And I'm not saying that Charlie is Christ, but Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ, right? I think Charlie was following Christ. And I think that God was preparing me. And I think that God gave me the gift to tell Charlie, like, there was no regret that he didn't know how special he was to me. I got to tell him, and not many people. I'm finding out now there's people who've been in his organization for years that never got to say a single word to him. So that's pretty special to me. Like, I was like, wow, I didn't realize that they never even got to, I just assumed that they've been around him or talked to him. They never got to say a word to him. So so that's how I see the smile on my face. That's what I want to rewrite in the book. I want to rewrite a really happy place, and that Charlie was given to us for a short season, but God allowed him to be crossed into my path. God allowed me to sow into the ministry. God allowed me to sow into the vision. And not only that, God allowed me to go to the memorial and not be, like I would say the positive. I didn't have to wait in super long lines, except the car line, which was like 2 hours. But when I got there, I didn't wait long lines. I got a VIP pass. I got a press pass, and I have his book right there. That book is from when I went to Mar-a-Lago, and I told him that I was so proud of him. He was giving all those books away, and I regret it. He did a picture with his book. I could have did another opportunity and I could have taken that picture with him, but I got out of line. So I had to get the book separately, but I could have got another picture with him. But you see what happens there? See what just happened? Like all of a sudden I like regret wants to come in. Did you guys see that? Like all of a sudden I was gonna be like, oh, I regret, but no, I'm not gonna do that to myself. Okay. I'm making a choice right now. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do the regret thing. I got a book from him that day and I'm grateful. So you see the difference is like it's just that quick. I had to make a decision. You saw that all you guys just seen the whole process of that happen right now. Okay. So we are doing that. And then I want you to go to the library of the mind and visualize refilling that painful book, like I mentioned to you, and then have your scripture anchored. And if you guys need some scripture anchors, you can check out these. And one is Psalm 34:18. Psalm 34:18. I'm going to tell you what it is. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. So pick some scriptures. I'm going to pick some and I'm going to memorize them. He is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit. You could pick something else. I mean, this is more about your grief, but still 61:3 Psalms. I'm sorry, that's Isaiah. Isaiah 61:3 is the Lord provides comfort for those who are in grief. He consoles the mourners in Zion. He gives them beauty for ashes and the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise. Well, we're going to read that one. I want to declare that before we get out. And then there's 2 Corinthians 1:3-4. The last thing I'm going to say is journal that release letter to God. So we're asking, or I'm asking you guys to rewrite that chapter in the book. Okay, so pull out the book. You're rewriting a memory. You're rewriting whether it's connected to a certain person. Pull out that book, rewrite the chapter. That's one part of it. Okay, the second part though is to journal a release letter to God. So this is a separate thing. One thing is that memory about the person, anything that's triggering to you, journal a letter, right? Okay, dear Yahweh or Yeshua, Jesus, whatever you want to put right there. Write a letter and write whatever's on your heart. But I just say, I want to bring my grief to you, the grief of ... I want to bring this letter of release to you. And I know that you give beauty for ashes. I know you give strength for weakness. And today I'm writing a letter of release and I'm giving my grief to you, Lord. I'm giving it to you. Because your word says in Isaiah 61:3 that you give beauty for ashes and the oil of joy instead of mourning and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. So today, Lord, I am writing this letter of release to my grief because I know, okay, you don't have to write all this. I'm just writing it in my head. I will write it because I know that releasing this grief is not releasing my love. Do you understand that? It is okay to release the grief because sometimes we hold on to grief because we think that it's to release the grief means that we're releasing the memory. To release the grief means we're releasing the love. But I want to tell you right now that releasing the grief does not mean either of those things. You can keep your full love for the person. You can keep the memories for the person. Grief is not equal with caring. Okay. So I want you to give yourself permission to give the grief to God. And I'm looking forward to doing this exercise, ladies, because it's just been way too much heaviness, more than I can bear the last few days. And I have a lot of children. I need to get up. I need to be like David. I need to wash my face. I need to eat. I need to get back in the game because there's a mission. There's a mission to accomplish and there's people to serve. And there's a nation that needs, especially because I'm in media, there's a nation that needs our voice and ignite voices and the McMillions. And there's a world out there that needs you. There's family members that need you. There's loved ones who are still depending on you. So you need to show up for them as well. So that is it in this session of our grief reset. This is part 2. If you missed part 1, I'll put a link up above so that you guys could watch them together. They're really important. Grief, navigating grief, and then the grief reset. So I hope you enjoyed this session. If you'd like to know more, you can go to EmmaSara.com. You can find me on IG, EmmaSara McMillion, and I'm also on Facebook. And please join our Elevate community. We are a community, a collective community where I do group coaching sessions, and the focus is always going to be on restoring, renewing relationships with self and with others, resetting your brain structure. And then there's some fun areas in there that we talk about healthy eating and natural health. And so it's a really powerful community where the women are constantly elevating. That's why it's called Elevate. So that is it. I'm EmmaSara. Remember, y'all, go out and live the life that you want to be remembered for. And right now, that statement means so much. God bless.